look at the weather.
It's beautiful here.
Non-stop rain.
Oh, man, it is a blazer out there.
It's cold and it's shivery.
It is cold.
Really coming down here.
I really enjoy your weather reports.
From the All Indiana Podcast Network, we're talking weather in a whole new way. From historical events to what's coming up, plus weather news, science, safety, fun facts, and more.
I like where this is going.
This is Weather Weekly. Weather Weekly with Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Marcus Bailey.
Episode number 71. Going to be with you here on this last full week of the month of May. And that means it is all things Indy 500. Yeah, we're getting up for it. It's going to be a good one here coming up this weekend. I'll have that forecast here in just a bit. But yeah, it's an exciting time to be in central Indiana. And the weather's starting to turn, although we've had a couple of cool days here to open up the week. But beautiful weather. I'm recording this on Tuesday the 24th, and just a gorgeous day. Hopefully everybody's able to get out and enjoy some of the beautiful weather here early on into the week. So after the break here, we're going to talk about a couple of things. We had some pretty nasty storms over the weekend and 3 confirmed tornadoes from some of those storms this past Saturday. So we're going to kind of go over the survey and the damage and kind of the environment, the setup on what happened on Saturday. And we look forward to the Indianapolis 500. And as we did last year, we did it with Scott Sander last year, we're going to talk about Indianapolis 500 weather history and how often the weather has played a role in the greatest spectacle in racing. That's coming up next here on Weather Weekly.
Audible's romance collection has something to satisfy every side of you. When it comes to what kind of romance you're into, you don't have to choose just one. Fancy a dalliance with a duke, or maybe a steamy billionaire. You could find a book boyfriend in the city and another one tearing it up on the hockey field. And if nothing on this earth satisfies, you can always find love in another realm. Discover modern rom-coms from authors like Lily Chu and Allie Hazelwood, the latest romantasy series from Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros, plus Regency favorites like Bridgerton and Outlander. And of course, all the really steamy stuff. Your first great love story is free when you sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
Episode number 71 of Weather Weekly. Good to be with you here. We will spend a lot of time here on the upcoming Indianapolis 500. It's the 106th running, one of the greatest events you'll ever go to, even if you're not a diehard race fan. If you've never been and you're listening to this podcast outside of central Indiana, I highly recommend you take a trip to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway the Sunday before Memorial Day. Even if you're not into racing all that much, it may change your tune. Just an event that is just ingrained with tradition, respect for the Memorial Day holiday weekend, and then just immense power with 33 drivers racing for one of the larger purses in motorsports. But more important than that, just being forever an icon as an Indianapolis 500 champion. Always a fun event, 200 laps, 500 miles, in one of the largest sporting venues you'll ever see. And it should be a good one here coming up this Sunday. So we'll talk kind of weather and how it relates to the Indianapolis 500 here in just a bit. But I did want to give a quick recap on what happened over the weekend. On Saturday, had a pretty nasty line of storms that rolled through. Areas just south of Indianapolis specifically got hit pretty hard with some nasty weather. The National Weather Service in Indianapolis went out on Sunday, so that would have been the 22nd, and surveyed the damage that happened on the 21st, and they came up with 3 confirmed tornadoes, 2 EF0s and 1 EF1. All 3 creating at least a little bit of damage. Thankfully, no significant injuries that we know of. The first in Brown County, this was 5 miles south of Princess Lake, so this is kind of northeastern Brown County. This happened at 3:40 in the afternoon. Again, EF0, 84 mile per hour winds. Was on the ground for about a third of a mile, and the width was about 50 yards. The write-up on this: numerous trees down in a convergent pattern through a dense wooded area. Widespread straight line winds of 80 to 90 mile per hour created significant uprooted and broken trees within a wide area as well as along the damaged path. It wasn't a real strong signal in terms of a tornado signature, but I do believe that had a tornado warning on it between Princess Lakes and Nashville in northeastern Brown County. And again, it was very, very brief, broad rotation, but that's where that quick spin up was. Second one, another EF0. This happened at 3:48, so this was 8 minutes later in southern Johnson County, Camp Atterbury. EF0, 84 mile per hour winds, was only on the ground for a tenth of a mile, 50 yards in width. A weak tornado briefly touched down at Camp Atterbury. The steeple at a church was blown over and several vehicles were lifted slightly with plywood debris from the roof of the church underneath the tires of the cars. Widespread straight line winds of 80 to 90 mile per hour created significant uprooted and broken trees within a wide area as well. So that was not related to the tornado. And again, the radar imagery showed very broad rotation there. Nothing too significant. Now, probably the bigger one here was an EF1. This happened between 3:57 and 4:12 p.m. on Saturday. Again, EF1, 110 mile per hour winds. The path length was just shy of 14 miles and the width was 100 yards. Tornado was skipping along in the entire path, so it wasn't on the ground the entire time. This basically was in southern Shelby County. Damage path was maximized in Mount Auburn, where width reached 100 yards. Many trees down or uprooted along path. Widespread straight line winds of 80 to 90 miles per hour created significant uprooted and broken trees within a wide area as well as along this damaged path. And again, this was the strongest signal of rotation. There was a pretty tight couplet in that Mount Auburn area. That's just northeast of Edinburgh, northwest of Flat Rock, and there was some pretty significant damage around that area. So 3 tornadoes that were confirmed on Saturday. That was a slight risk day. It originally started as a marginal risk, but I believe when the day one risk assessment came out Saturday morning, that the most of central Indiana was under a slight risk for severe weather. A lot of power outages out as well. And they're still working to clean things up. A lot of trees and power poles were down. I had a cousin that sent me a photograph from Waldron in southern Shelby County of County Road that had probably a good 10 to 12 power line poles that were completely snapped, and they were just kind of sitting, hanging by the power lines in the middle of the road. So some significant damage there with that Saturday storm system. And so, again, just a quick reminder, even on a slight risk day and even with weak, those were considered weak tornadoes. EF0, EF1, not incredibly strong, but you're hearing how much damage that they can do. So something to always take seriously when it comes to severe thunderstorm warnings, because you also heard, in addition to some of the tornado damage, there was widespread straight line wind damage of 80 to 90 miles per hour. And a lot of the areas that were had the heavy damage, it wasn't necessarily just tornado damage, it was straight line wind damage in addition to that. So that's where you ran into some problems. All right, switching gears. Let's look ahead to this Sunday, one of my favorite weekends of the year growing up in Indiana, whether I was going to the race or whether I was not going to the race. And of course, if you live in central Indiana, the race is blacked out because the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is pretty much impossible to sell out. We've been very spoiled the last couple of years. I mean, I say that tentatively, but because of the COVID restrictions, they had limited capacity. And so they did televise the event live here in Indianapolis. And in my lifetime, I believe in 41 years that I can think of anyway, that it's been broadcast live. The last 2 years due to COVID, and then on the 100th running 6 years ago, they broadcasted live because they officially declared it a sellout. And I was actually at that race, and it was, if it wasn't really truly sold out, I mean, it was awfully, awfully close. There wasn't a seat in the house, and it was overflowing in the infield. I don't think I've ever seen that many people. So, but anyway, usually we listen to it on the radio on Sunday. And if you've never had a chance to listen to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway radio network, Mark Janes is the lead anchor with a host of several others. Scott Sander, also one of those. He'll be back in the pits this year for a second year down with the radio network. Listen to it. It's radio theater. It is unbelievably entertaining. And it goes along well with... if you're watching it on TV, or if you're like me and you can't watch it on TV live, it's just good to just kind of sit and listen. So we thoroughly enjoy that. But let's talk weather history here. And I wrote an article, I think my first year here in Wish TV, maybe 2016, and kind of talks about the history of weather and how it relates to the Indianapolis 500. So there's been several that obviously have been impacted by rain, and I'll talk about those in just a second. But I started the article off with 1992. 1992 maybe goes down as one of the, I won't say the because that's all subjective, but one of the most exciting finishes in Indianapolis 500 history. That's when Al Unser Jr. won his first Indianapolis 500 over Scott Goodyear, just 4/100ths of a second win. It still remains the closest margin of victory in race history. But what's interesting about that day is I believe they had the record number of crashes in that day. But it went down as the coldest race day in history. They only hit a high of 58 degrees that day. It was overcast as well. We talked to former race historian, he's retired now, Donald Davidson, in this interview, and his exact quote: there were a lot of crashes because the track surface was so cold and the tires had a hard time kind of adjusting. So every time there was a restart, somebody would lose control and there would be another incident. So very, very interesting there. The rain has impacted the race more than any other phenomenon, obviously. The 500 has had to be moved to another day due to rain 5 times. Of those 5, 3 of those races had to be finished 2 to as long as 7 days later than the original start date. Rain has shortened the race 7 times, and that happened most recently in 2007. We have been very, very fortunate. Back in the early 2000s and mid 2000s, we actually had a couple of rain shortened events, and we haven't had it happen since 2007. So it's been a long time coming. And thankfully it looks like we're going to stay dry this year as well. So we've been very, very lucky. 2004 was kind of a nasty year. And you guys, if you've been listening to this podcast long enough, you know about my discussions about the epic storm chase trip I took with Ball State University, which was in 2004. We hit a high-risk day and a very active day in the plains where we had, dozens of tornadoes that we saw in just a few hours' time. Well, that threat then shifted east, and it became a problem for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They had to end up basically not just postponing, they ended the event early because the town of Speedway was under a tornado warning during the race. If I remember correctly, that race was stopped twice. So yeah, it stopped at 166 laps, 415 miles. I'm sorry, that was 2007. 2004 was at 180 laps, so they were nearly complete. 200 laps is the full 500 miles. They got 450 miles in. That was Buddy Rice getting his win there. And yeah, here we go. So 2004 race was stopped by rain twice. The race was halted for 1 hour and 47 minutes because of rain on lap 28, so they just barely got underway, and was declared official when rain once again stopped the race at the 450-mile mark, so at 180 laps. That was Buddy Rice again winning that, and that was, I believe, the first win for David Letterman as an owner. The most recent rain shortened race, 2007, that was also stopped twice. The rain halted the race for 2 hours and 57 minutes because of rain on lap 113, which they could have stopped it then, but they wanted to try to get back on the track, and they thought that they had at least a little bit of a window. Remember, race is official at lap 101 because you've passed now the halfway mark. So 113, you could have declared that official. And the race was stopped at the 415-mile mark. That was 166 laps. And if I remember correctly, I believe that was Dario Franchitti winning that one. Some other ones here. Complete postponements. The 1915 race, scheduled to run on Saturday, May 29th, because Memorial Day fell on a Sunday back then, was postponed on Friday because of several recent rainstorms and was rescheduled for Monday, May 31st. The 1986 race was scheduled for Sunday, May 25th, but rain forced postponement of the event until the following day, which was also washed out. The race was then rescheduled for and successfully run on Saturday, May 31st. So they had to go 7 days later than originally scheduled in 1986. That was the Bobby Rahal win, if you remember. In 1997, race was scheduled for Sunday, May 25th, but was postponed by rain. Rain stopped the race after 15 laps on May 26th. That was Memorial Day, and it was completed on Tuesday, May 27th. So I have my own personal story. If you didn't listen to last year's, I'll go ahead and give you this. So the last postponement where we had to actually move it to a completely different day was 1997. So it's been a really long time since we've had that happen. I was sitting in the exit of turn 4. My favorite driver then was Tony Stewart, who had not moved completely over to NASCAR at that point. He was kind of on the tail end of his Indy car career. He was driving for the Menards team, bright yellow car, number 20, or maybe he had number 14 then. I can't remember. I think maybe it was 14. He was, I believe, maybe on pole or in the front row, super excited about it. And we didn't even go to the track on Sunday. We were watching Wish TV and watching their pre-race show, and they kept saying, "Ooh, the rain's coming, the rain's coming." And I was starting to get mad at my family because we weren't leaving, and they were starting to go through kind of all of the opening ceremonies. They were getting through people lining up on the grid. They were, I think, getting to the invocation and the national anthem, and I want to even think Jim Neighbors was singing Back Home Again in Indiana, and they didn't even get out on the track because then the rain started falling. So they didn't even get any parade laps, or maybe they got some parade laps in, but I don't think they ever went green. I know they didn't go green on Sunday. So we made it to Monday, and again, we got the 15 laps in, and then it just opened up, and it did not let up. And it was obvious there was no way. I think we were out there for, I can't even remember how long. But my parents were, they were on the opposite side of the track from me. And you have to remember, this is before cell phones. So all I knew is where we were parked. So I don't know if my parents went back to the car. I'm just kind of sitting there waiting it out. Some people are waiting it out. Some people are not. We kind of walked around. We were soaked. But they officially then called and said, "Hey, we're coming back tomorrow." What's interesting about that is I still had, I believe, school. Yeah, I did have school the next day. It would have been my freshman year of high school, I think. Freshman or sophomore year. But my dad was not thrilled that my mom was going to still take me to the race. And so I went with my sister, and we sat in our seats on the exit at turn 4. And my mom and the rest of the family were sitting between 1 and 2 in the short chute. And we got through the race. And I didn't go to school that day. So my dad was not super happy that I had to miss out on school. But hey, I got to go to the race. Arie Luyendyk got his second Indy 500 victory. So yeah, it was fun. We had a good time. But that was the last time they had a postponement, complete postponement. Partial postponements. The 1967 race was rained out after 18 laps and finished the following day. And the 1973 race was started on Monday, May 28th, but the first lap accident involving Salt Walther forced the red flag, and the race was rained out before it could be restarted. It was then postponed again on Tuesday, May 29th, after rain began falling during the second parade lap. The race finally got underway on Wednesday, May 30th, but rain again caused the race to be stopped and ruled complete after finishing 332.5 miles. Some additional rain notes. In 1926, the race is the first race to have been stopped by rain twice in the same day. The race was temporarily halted because of rain on lap 71 and was declared officially over when rain once again stopped the proceedings at the 400-mile mark. In 1940, the final 50 laps were run under the caution lights because of rain. In 2001, the race was stopped on lap 155 due to rain. The race was restarted after a 16-minute, 34-second delay. That's not bad, meaning that there wasn't really super heavy rain that took a long time to kind of dry the track off. So, I want to go back to this interview I did with Donald Davidson, because the dude, if you're not familiar with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the guy's a wealth of knowledge. They used to run, he's still a big part of the race day coverage. The guy just knows everything and anything about every race that's ever been run at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And he was the former museum historian before he then retired a couple of years ago. So some of his quotes, focusing on basically 1970 seemed to get the brunt of the weather. There were postponements in 73, 75, and 76. And Davidson remembers 75 mostly. So this was his quote. At the time, Bobby Unser was leading, but Johnny Rutherford was catching him, and then A.J. Foyt in third was catching both of them. And what could have been a really great battle to the finish was ruined because in came the weather, and it was a deluge, like a monsoon. But he said, despite the abrupt and non-dramatic ending of those three mega names, basically, Davidson said he was in awe of the fan reaction at the end of the race. So they put the red flag out. This is Donald Davidson talking about this specific race. They put the red flag out and the checkered flag out, and here came Bobby Unser and Johnny Rutherford almost together, running maybe 70 miles per hour. It looked like a crawl, splashing through the water, and the crowd cheering. And I thought, isn't that amazing? You don't have to be doing 200 miles an hour or plus to get cheers here. Just some other interesting facts that I put up here. Some other interesting race day weather statistics. The hottest day temperature was 92 degrees. That was in 1937, with the 114-year average high temperature standing at just above 77 degrees. The highest wind speed was recorded in 1995 at only 18 miles per hour. And something very interesting, despite the many rain delays that you heard me just talk about, the Indianapolis 500 has never run in the month of June. So we've still been able to get it in before the month of June. So we've been very fortunate. Again, there's been a lot of postponements and delays and cancellations and all that other stuff. But we have been very fortunate as of late. You have to go back to, again, 2007, the last time that we actually had to shorten the race due to rain. I will say this, though. It's interesting how things work out, right? And I've been very fortunate. And obviously, I've had to miss the last couple of years of the 500. And I don't believe I went to the last year before COVID. And that was, I believe, Simon Pagenaud winning that year. I've been very fortunate. I think the first 4 years back here in Indianapolis working for Wish TV, I was able to go to those races. And I can recall at least one of them. It may have been the Will Power win year. So that would have been 101, I think, or maybe 102. I went to the media center. I watched the post-race interview because I knew it was going to take me forever to get out of the media lot. And I walked back to my car. I'm sitting in traffic, and it just opens up. And I'm listening to post-race coverage on our local sports channel here. And they even lost power briefly at IMS because they were doing their radio broadcast from the media center as well. It just opened up. So if that would have happened 45 minutes earlier, it may have been a different ending to that race. Because then, for as hard as it rained, you would have been talking about at least a 2-hour delay to dry the track. And then you're running into, are we going to have enough daylight? Probably at that point you would have, because you may have only had, 10 to 20 laps max. But would there have been different strategies from the teams trying to kind of race against the rain and hoping that maybe they postpone it? Man, who knows, right? So, but I find that interesting because there's been several times we've had rain on race day, and it's just been kind of, summertime pop-up storms. And so you just have to kind of get lucky that those downpours stay away from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But thankfully we have, and we have for the last several years. I guess the big question now is, will we stay dry this year for Indianapolis 500 episode 106? We'll have a look at that forecast coming up next year on Weather Weekly. Here's a look at the forecast for the last full week of the month of May, and we gear up for race weekend here in Indianapolis. Looks like we got some pretty good rain chances here coming our way, both for Wednesday and Thursday, the 25th and the 26th. There is a marginal risk for maybe some severe storms. Again, that's where we initially kind of started off with the Saturday. Not trying to compare the two, but you just never know sometimes where you can get maybe a strong storm or two starting to spawn. I don't think tornado is going to be the greatest risk. It's more so hail and damaging winds specifically for Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night, and into early Thursday morning as a cold front will start to work through the region on Thursday. Looks like as we head into Carb Day on Friday, that's the last practice of before we gear up for the Indianapolis 500. That comes up on Friday, big party, and looks like we got some spotty rain chances, but I certainly don't think at this point it will be a washout out at the track. If you're going to be heading out there, I would grab the rain gear, but festivities should be okay. They don't have very long to practice. It's a couple of hours, I believe, starting at 11, and they'll do the pit stop competition, and they have the concert. And that will go rain or shine, unless it's really nasty weather, which I don't think it will be. Parade downtown Indianapolis, and that is on Saturday. It should be a beautiful morning for that. And if you're going to be heading to Legends Day at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it's when you can see some of the old cars, and they will have driver autograph sessions with the grid of 33, and then some older drivers. Really a cool event. Should be a beautiful day for that. Highs near 80, and then race day itself, mid 80s is what I'm going to go with, right around 85 for your high. The National Blended Models is actually taken to around 81, but I do think it's going to be a little bit warmer than that, and I think more important, it's going to be a bit on the muggy side. Probably most importantly, I'm keeping both Saturday and Sunday dry. So I don't think we have any rain chances for the race itself. So we should get all 500 miles, all 200 laps in on time on Sunday. The heat will build, it appears. Memorial Day, mid to upper 80s. Looks like it's going to be pretty muggy. And back to work Tuesday of next week, we're looking at highs near 90. I went 91 for our high next Tuesday on the 31st. And it looks like it's going to be a hot start to the month of June with highs near 90 as well. Maybe a little bit cooler then by midweek. The second and the third, Thursday and Friday, starts to scale back to the low 80s. But the 8 to 14 day outlook does call for a strong signal for above average temperatures. So it looks like we're going to be on the warmer side of things. Thanks for joining us here for episode number 71 of Weather Weekly. Greatly appreciate your time. If you'd like to hear something specific, you want me to cover a subject matter here, shoot me an email. Marcus.bailey@wishtv.com. You can hit me up on social media as well. Marcus Bailey, at Marcus Bailey, I should say, on Twitter, and Marcus Bailey Weather on Facebook and Instagram. Have a great end of the month. We will hit you up next week for episode number 72, which will be the first one for the month of June. We'll talk all things June weather up and coming as we start to hit the beginning months of summer. Getting ready for it. Pools should be open starting this weekend, and boy, the heat on schedule for a lot of those pools opening. Hopefully you can get out and enjoy it, and hopefully you can enjoy what is a fantastic weekend here in Central Indiana. I certainly am looking forward to hopefully a clean and dry race on Sunday. Make sure you check out all the other podcasts here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Have a great week, and God bless.
Discover more from Storm Track 8 Weather and Wish TV. Online at wishtv.com, and when you follow Wish TV on Facebook. Plus, be sure to check out more great podcasts from the All Indiana Podcast Network now at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.